Hello, everyone, and welcome to this TIA live stream. We have just found out that the TIA has let the three of us run this show solo. They have no idea what they agreed to do. Chris Burrows and Jonathan Baker made rue the day that they let David, Daniel, and I sit here and shoot the breeze about leadership in logistics today. So, real quick, my name is Mike Riccio with More Than Miles Consulting. We have David Abel from AM Transport, and we have Daniel Ilg from ILG or ILG Transport. So today we're going to talk about leadership in the industry, and it's going to be an interesting conversation without our moderator. So off we go. But before we get started, I've got some housekeeping that I have to do. I have to read you the antitrust statement. Please recognize that discussions, comments, and presentations during TIA functions must not refer to any past, present, or future rates, prices, or anything related thereto, include any references to marketing strategies, include any discussions of boycotts of any person, products, or firm, or inhibit any members' employees from discussing employment with other member companies. Things you hear during the meeting that are confidential and private to the TIA should not be shared publicly without its prior consent or used against or in competition with the TIA. So just wanted to make sure that you're seeing us here, either LinkedIn or YouTube, and you can comment, and we're going to be looking at comments. So if anybody has any questions, please don't try any that may stump us because that's highly possible. But really, we just want to spend a little bit of time talking about leadership and logistics, and we want to talk about effective decision making, problem solving in today's world, especially ethics. One of our issues today is certainly there's a lot of fraud going on in various places, and I think it's easy to slip into the if they're doing it, why can't we do it scenario, so to speak, and trim corners. And really, one of the tenets of the TIA is really ethical leadership and running an ethical brokerage. So we'll get into that a little bit. But let's start out just like with a quick question today. Really about kind of what's really going on in the industry, and let's talk about decision making and leadership as it revolves around decision making, and kind of the speed and pressure that goes on today with how fast things move. Based on your years of running the business and managing employees, what are you seeing today that kind of sets better leaders apart from maybe some folks that aren't as good managers, especially with the speed at which businesses run today?
Yeah, go for it, Daniel.
Okay. Yeah, I think our business has changed dramatically, right, in the last, call it 15 years, 20 years. I think I saw Rob Kemp and Chris Burrows talk about it, of just how slow our business was to adapt technology, and then it comes and it's all that we talk about now. And to that extent, I think that leadership side and developing people side kind of got pushed aside for a little bit. And I think that was kind of the part of having this live stream, doing some of the things that the TIA is doing. I grew up in this industry, so I've been, 14 years old. I was dispatching trucks and handwriting rate cons, and that was not that long ago. I realize how long it is now, but it was not that long ago. And to where we're at now. But I think the message, at least in our office, that has always stayed the same is that people are our differentiator. It's the people that are in our office that make the difference in the way that we move freight, the way that we talk to customers, the way that we service carriers, all of those kinds of things. And technology is awesome. I love it. But it can't replace that human touch. And as long as that human touch is going to be there, we need to make sure that we're supporting our people well and doing everything we can to build them up and grow them.
No, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think, you with all this technology, it's great, but sometimes you have to be a little old school. And old school meaning just doing things the right way, doing what you say you're going to do, following through on it. I remember one of the first things that when I first started in the industry, I started at AM Transport, was we don't negotiate, agree to a load with a carrier and then give that load to somebody else if we find a cheaper rate. It's just something you just do not do, hands down. And yeah, and if you found a cheaper carrier, or you talk to somebody ahead of time, and they came back and they said, oh yeah, I've got a truck. And man, it's so easy, right, to tell the carrier that you agreed with, hey, load got canceled or something, and feed them a line and give it to the other person. But is that the right thing to do? No, it's not. It's unequivocally, no, it's not the right thing to do. And so I think I think that's one of the biggest things that's plaguing brokers right now is I'll be the first to admit we're not in a great market, and it's hard, right? It's hard. We've been in a freight trough for the last, going on 4 years now. But you have to think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel someday, and so you can't trade short-term profitability for long-term reputation. And so, at AM Transport, we've been around. In March, it'll be 36 years, and the word, our reputation, that's the most important thing to me. I tell shippers all the time when I'm talking to them that, hey, I get it, right? You get a million calls every day from folks just like me. And don't take my word for it. Go out, look on DAT, look on Google. I'm proud of the fact that we have almost 200 5-star reviews from carriers, from customers, from employees. And so stuff like that is very important to me.
Yeah, I think, two things that you both hit upon, right? Danny, what you hit upon is the people. And I totally agree with you, right? People will spend a ton of money on technology today, or they'll consider spending a ton of money in technology today, but they don't really invest in their people. And let's be honest, everybody can kind of have the same technology. Look, I get it. There's some differences if, you're somebody that's a $2 billion brokerage versus a $10 million, $2 million brokerage, but it's really your people that set you apart. And David, pertaining to what you're hitting on, when I'm coaching and working with people, I'm talking about what is your carrier relations program? What are you trying to do right now? Look, stop worrying about the small percentage that might be bad actors. There's bad actors on both ends. At some point in time, whether it's through a slow process or some large external macro event, the market will turn, and you have to figure out a way to reduce mitigation and reduce flight. So how you lead your people and how you deal with those different relationships, specifically with carriers, because if carriers aren't making money, then you're not going to have a carrier to haul your freight. And I know we intrinsically know this, but a lot of times we get into, as you indicated, this short-term thinking, and we're not thinking long-term. And so what are some leaders doing to kind of, like, a lot of times you got to make decisions without all of the information, right? And so I think some of that is culture within your companies, as well as how that is managed. I mean, could you guys comment a little bit about how you balance speed and risk versus accountability, and and maybe some practical examples of things that are going on operationally that you guys see in your own shops or have experienced in talking to other people about how to lead people in a more ethical manner, a more appropriate manner for the long-term growth versus the short-term win.
Yeah, I mean, for me specifically, we lead, make decisions, execute operationally, sales, whatever it might be, based off of our core values. And I think when faced with decisions where you don't have the complete information, what you do have is your complete understanding of your core values and what information do you have that aligns with or doesn't align with the values that you have going. We sell off of that. We use that as a value prop when we're talking to new customers. We use that as a value prop when we're talking to carriers. David's point, he has the same benefit that I have, which is when I get on a call with a carrier, I can look back. I can point to outside resources that show that I'm not like the ABC broker down the street that they talked to that didn't pay him attention, that didn't, that took him off a load 10 minutes out and didn't pay him a tow new because whatever reason. Like, I have the ability, hey, go and look at my DAT reviews. Like, I'm doing I'm practicing what I preach. In that same vein, like, I'm expecting and holding holding my people to the same standard that I hold myself to. And so I want to be the example. If I'm going to have a difficult conversation with somebody externally specifically, like I'm going to treat them with the respect that they're due, and we're going to keep rolling from that. And I think that's a helpful piece to be able to push back on and point back on, when things do fall off, when things do get difficult, when things are hard, when you are faced or pushed to make a decision without adequate information or without all of the data behind it. Sometimes you have to just move forward, and one step is better than no steps.
Yeah, I go ahead, Dave.
Yeah. A lot of times you don't have all the information, right? And sometimes you're just never going to get it, right? There's, what do they say? There's three sides to every story, he said, she said, and the truth. And, the biggest advice I can give folks, and I think the thing, a lot of times when I'm doing stuff like this, I'm talking to a mirror, right? And so if I could go back and give myself advice early on in my career, it would be, don't get emotional about this stuff. It's similar to what I tell my kids, right? Like, you need to calm down. We'll talk about it when you're regulated, and it's kind of like that. I got to tell myself that. I got to tell some of our folks here that, right? The I truly believe that, yeah, there's, what Mike said earlier, there's some bad people out there that are literally trying to steal our freight, defraud us. But the majority of the folks are good people, right? They're just trying to make a living just like you and I are. And so we get in these situations, and they think they're right, we think we're right, and at the end of the day, it's how can you find that common ground? How can is there a compromise in there? Is there a win-win situation where you can both live to fight another day? I know we're not a huge organization, and the buck stops at me, right? Like, I'm a big believer in Jocko and extreme ownership. If something goes wrong, it's probably my fault at some point, right? Because there's something I didn't do. I didn't train this person enough. I didn't tell this person. I didn't do this, and so I take accountability for all that stuff. And if there's an issue, I don't want to micromanage our people, but I want to get in it, right? I want to understand what's happening, because at the end of the day, my name's on the line, and I can't ever say, well, that was so and so. But one of the things I would recommend is those are all teaching and learning experiences, to where you might make a decision, somebody did something wrong, or somebody did something that it's not the way you would do it, but finish out the situation, finish out, get a resolution, and then go back and talk about it. And I think that we fail to do that a lot of times, because it's, oh, the next fire of, hey, they said this, I said this is why I said this, here's where I was going with this. Those are all teachable moments, so the next time your people are more prepared when that arises.
I could have used that advice last week about controlling my emotions. I think that that is something that I'm a recovering hothead, and I have struggled with really all my career. So I think that's very, very good advice, right? Kind of slow down. Yeah, you want to slow down on people, you want to slow down on money, and you want to slow down on ethical decisions, right? It's it's so easy to try to put out the fire. And one of the things that I kind of pass along, and it's corny, but it's true. Control what you can control, right? And there are some things you can control. I mean, it's good to understand what's going on in the market. It's good to understand what's going on the macro level, but you shouldn't let that dictate your direction, right? You can control your sales plan. You can control your messaging, internal and external. You can control your behavior, and you can control your effort. And the rest really is noise. And it sounds corny, but it's true. And, one of the things that, back to what we were talking about as it pertains to, creating relationships with your carrier base, I walk into people's office and I see the platitudes on the wall or on their website. It talks about partnerships and relationships and mutually beneficial relationships, but yet we're incentivizing the broker on the floor, he or she, to make the biggest bang for the buck every single time. And if we're not both making money, there's going to be a problem along the way, both whether that be in your relationship, or with that carrier, or internally with your employees. So it's like, teaching them, some of those learning lessons, the fundamental, learning lessons that are going on, and that the TIA is doing a leadership lab course this April. It starts at the Capital Ideas where it's a 6-month course talking about various aspects of leadership and from the fundamentals right on through ethical leadership, which we will be talking about today. Before we move forward, I've got 2 points. A, if you're listening or watching, feel free to put a comment in on LinkedIn or on YouTube because we can see the comments or a question. We'd be happy to answer those questions. And it looks like I missed the memo. I think I should have worn a vest today with a gray background. Had I known you guys were going to do that,
we'll coordinate next time.
I'm a little envious that I didn't coordinate with the two of you. So, talk about a little bit from, David, you started touching on it from a problem solving perspective. But I'll start us out that I think sometimes it is as much the system as it is the actual results, right? And as you said, we've got to look back at what system do we have our employees in, and how are we managing that system to be ethical, to be profitable, because come on, you have to make money, right? I mean, I understand that's why we're doing this. We're not doing this for practice. But is there any techniques that you guys, or any advice that you can give leaders to, from maybe things that didn't go right? Dave, you started about that, but is there any additional input on, hey, look, I made a decision and it went off the rails, and what some of the common problems that you guys think your leaders or managers face that we should be thinking more
of? I know for me, I think the biggest thing is accountability across the board, right? And so I always tell my people is, I'm going to make mistakes. Like, I'm not going to hide from them though. Like, I'm not going to sit there and pretend like it didn't happen. I'm going to make the wrong decision sometimes. I'm cool with that because the decision was made and we were able to execute based off of it. I think with decision making, the thing, whether it's, I talk about it in conversations more so than in decision making, but the same principle applies, is I always start with the end in mind. Like, what's the solution that I'm trying to get to? What's the thing that what's ideal state? And if you can work backwards off of that, it helps in navigating conversations. It helps navigating difficult scenarios. It helps navigating with that decision making. Like, what is the decision that helps me get to that end goal? And I think too often people get wrapped up in, hey, just make the decision and it's what's right now. And I think when I look at and think about like the best leaders that I've seen, the best ones that have led with me, alongside me, it's the ones that were able to exist at that 30,000 foot level at all times. And I didn't always understand it, but hindsight was always 20/20, and it was, that's why they did X, Y, or Z. Trying to do that same thing with my people. And then I think the biggest part, especially leading younger folks, is like, you have to start with that why. Like, you have to give them the rationalization for why you're making the decision, or at least have them understand what that end goal is. And I think that gets, I'm second generation in this business, and it is a lot harder for the first generation of this business to do than it is for me, of just, that why, because it's just, hey, it's mine. I want to go. This is where we're going. Where I'm cool holding off and kind of moving things forward.
I would totally agree with you. So, for me, when I worked for my father-in-law, I think both of you know that, when he said you did something, you didn't ask why, you just did it.
Yeah, right.
You didn't question why, you just did it. And so I see people that, not age discrimination, that are my age, or a little bit older, a little bit younger, they struggle with that. And I'm like, look, you can struggle all you want, but what kind of culture do you want? It's right, wrong, or indifferent. People that are working in your office that are younger than you, they want to know why. And it's not a dictatorship. You can run a dictatorship, but then be prepared for what you're gonna, what the results are going to be. So, it's not that you have to kiss the ring or kiss their butts. It's a matter of just explaining that. And if you explain that vision as to the reasoning behind, a lot of times because of your experience as a leader, usually that they don't know, they haven't experienced that. So that's part of the reason. It's not to be contrary or to be argumentative. It's to understand, where are we headed? What are we trying to get? What are we trying to get accomplished? And so some of that is just basic, leadership just coaching, right? And there's not enough internal coaching that goes on, because it's just put out this fire, put out this fire, put out this fire. A lot of people want to understand. Most people, with some exceptions, want to do a good job for their manager or for their boss or for their owner. They really do, right? And so why not try to coach them along to help them understand either where the vision of where your company is headed and why you're trying to accomplish that, because you can't assume that they know.
No, I completely agree, Mike. I think a lot of it's ego, right? Like we all have egos, and I think that's the biggest opportunity for improvement is not only managing your ego, but helping your team manage theirs as well. I know when we have a difficult situation, it's exactly what you said, right? The people that work for you, the people that are on your team that work with you, they want to do a good job. They want to impress you, right? They want you to be proud of them. It comes back to that, it's psychology at the end of the day. And so you have to show them that, you know, what does right look like? Like
Mm-hmm.
what actions are you going to take that are going to make me proud of you? It's not, trying to gouge this carrier for maximum profit. It's, in our organization, it's doing the right thing. Ultimately, that's what I'm going to be proud of is, are you doing the right thing? And so that's what we're talking about, the emotions, let the ego down, manage your ego. I tell people all the time, right? It's chess, not checkers. That's the game that we're playing. We all know that these markets turn, right? I think we're all very hopeful that the market's going to turn sooner than later, but it is going to turn, right? The writing's on the wall of that, and so we're going to need these carriers now more than ever. And so if you're a company that you've spent the last 4 years just beating down your carriers, not paying, like Daniel was saying, not paying attention, not paying truck order not used, then they're not going to be there for you, right? But if you've been fair, and I think that's the thing we have to remember, right? We're all in this to make money, but there is a way to be fair with everyone. Things happen in transportation, right? Like the best laid plans, trucks
Mm-hmm.
are literally going to break down. I know we say it a lot or we hear it a lot, but turbos actually do get blown, flat tires, this winter weather, all this stuff happens. And so, like we're talking about, we can't control any of that, but the better relationship you have with that carrier, that the better outcome that you're going to have with your shipper at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times, again, we focus on, the challenges are people in the process, right? So we've got to figure a way to coach them along and help them understand, how to get there. And again, that's one of the segments in the leadership lab that the new certification that the TIA is having, is there's a whole module on coaching and different tactics and fundamentals and how to do that. In addition, there's going to be, a segment on a module that David, you and I are teaching and proctoring on ethical leadership. So let's talk about ethics and integrity. There's a lot of talk about ethics and integrity, versus true actions, right? As I like to say, like, what's it, let's talk about some of those things that go on, whether it be, trying to, somebody bumping up the detention time when it really, to 3 hours when it really was an hour, or trying to pad a rate here or skim a rate there. But from your guys' perspective, when you're coaching your teams, leading your teams, how do you get people to say, hey, look, just because someone else did this that wasn't completely ethical doesn't mean we should do the tit for tat, right? And let's talk a little bit about some of the different tactics and different ideas that get put around in your offices, or what you have seen in the industry to to kind of run, to become an ethical leader, because ethics is a gray term, right? Sometimes what you and I, the three of us, may think is ethical, someone else may not think is ethical, and vice versa. So I have some thoughts on that, but Daniel, why don't you start and kind of kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's something that comes from the top. So, how are you acting when, maybe you're not on a webinar, when you're not on a live stream, whatever it might be? Like, what are like, does the actions back it up? I know for me, like, I look back at a thing that happened, I don't know, probably 4 years ago, where we had a carrier that ended up double brokering a load. It was a trade show load going to Vegas, and he ended up bringing it to a cross dock in the north suburbs of Chicago, putting it on a 4-dropper between Utah, Colorado, with Vegas being the last stop, and it happened to be 3 days late to delivery, which Vegas show and everything else, and put up the reports, did all of the stuff, notified everybody that needed to be notified, and then the owner actually came to my office. And he comes in my office. I bring him into my actual office, close the door, and we're having a conversation. And he said something to me that has stuck with me now for like 3 or 4 years. And it's I didn't know that my employee was doing this. Like, do you really trust all of your people that are sitting out there? And it was the first time, definitely not the last time, where like I had to actually answer that question. But like there wasn't a hesitation, like, because the expectation was set at 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 20 years ago, when the company started, is like, hey, we're going to act differently than maybe the bad actors in our industry. We're going to exist in a different space. We're going to hold people accountable to that might be okay in one place, but it's not okay here. So to David's point, like, you get a carrier on a load, that carrier is the one who's hauling it. Like, that's what relationship looks like. That's what ethics look like. It's doing the right thing when no one's looking. It's making sure that you're not, hey, yeah, I've got a 7 a.m. appointment on Monday, and it's really a 7 p.m. appointment on Monday, and you're just trying to get that load moved because you know what it's going to turn into. And so, within all of that, it's like, do I trust that my people who are out on the floor right now, booking trucks, talking to customers, talking to receivers, that they're doing the right thing? Yeah. Because if they're not, then we're going to have a difficult conversation. But like, there's an expectation set out from leadership at ILG that, hey, we're going to do the right thing when no one's watching, and especially when people are watching, because everybody's always watching.
Well, quickly, David, before you go, perfect point, right? There's all sorts of social platforms out there for people to espouse their opinion, and a lot of times the opinion it's like telephone tag, right? What I say gets to David, David might misinterpret it, or something is a little different as it goes to you, Daniel. Well, by the time you go to a driver and the driver posts it, who knows what that is?
Mm-hmm.
But there's actual, facts, and there's the gray area, right? So you've always got to be understanding that everybody has a microphone today, and everybody has a platform today. And so if you're not doing the right thing, it's just a matter of when. It's not a matter of if, when that's going to be out in the public, and then you've got to defend it. And sometimes we're all defending things that aren't exactly completely true, but that's the world we live in. So my input is, we've got to show people what the right thing looks like, and do the right thing, because even when we do the right thing, it might get misconstrued or bent to someone's to their opinion, and it might not be completely true. How about you, Dave? What are some of the things that you and I've had some conversations about this prior, but give us some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are a hard act to follow. So we have music playing in our office, right? It's just something we do. We have and years ago we were talking about like what's the guidelines around it, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And there's probably a bunch of school of thought on this. My feedback on this is, if your grandma walked in to the office right now, like, would she be happy like with the type of music that's playing right now? And if she's not, then like, why are we listening to it?
Would she be happy with those vests?
I think she would. Yes, she'd be extremely happy.
Okay.
And so, I mean, for me, a lot of it comes down to that, right? It's like, you're prepared to make this decision? Like, what would your grandma say about this, right? What would your kids say? Like, could you look your kids in the eye and tell them you did this, I like to sleep at night, right? Like I don't want anything to have happened in my day that keeps me up at night. And some stuff, right, it's unavoidable. But when you have control of that, I don't know. I'm really big on work-life balance, right? I love my job. I love our company. I love everyone I work with, but I also love my family, and so I want to be able to walk out that door and go live my life with my family. And when you're start making unethical decisions, right, that encroaches on your work life balance, because then it's, oh my gosh, what I say to this person, what I say to this person, oh, this is an issue, that's an issue. And so I don't know, I think about that a lot. I don't ever want my kids to like hear a story, think about something, think think bad about me, right? Like none of us, we don't want our kids to, our kids until they reach a certain age, right? They think we're Superman. And so I never want them to, and I think about that a lot, right? If they're grown up and they read an article or they read this, or somebody tells them a story of something that I did that I knew was wrong, and I went ahead and did it. That's like one of the absolute worst things to me that could possibly happen. And so I don't know. To me, I think we overcomplicate it a lot. I think it boils down to that. Like, you know, you want a good life, then be a good person. You want good customers. Well, people attract, like attracts like, and so you need to be a good person in order to work with good people.
You still, a line that I use a lot of times is it's a pretty simple business that somehow we've managed to overcomplicate, right? You pick up a load and you move it from point A to point B, right? If you pick it up on time, deliver it, safely and claim free, and so the customer can put it on their product on the shelf. You've performed your service, but somehow in that process, we have managed to make it seem like rocket science, right? And I think as we're talking about ethics as well, sometimes we can get caught up in trying to get monthly and quarterly results and not think about the long-term sustainability of our company, right? And I know sometimes that's human nature, but my point is, what's your long-term goal? Let's work yourself back, right? Your current state, where you want to, what's your desired state, and how do we, let's start at the desired state, and then what do we need to do so that we're moving along and you're still hitting those quarterly results, but you're not doing that in spite of your long-term, your long-term sustainability. And again, it's really investing in your people as much as anything. And I think we sometimes forget that, right? And we just look for third-party logistics companies, your people are usually with one of your top three expenses, right? Depending on your organization. So why not? Why wouldn't you be investing in training them and managing them and teaching them good fundamentals and coaching them along the way, helping them make good ethical decisions and showing them what that looks like? And then really, Dan, you talked about accountability. I'm also a fan of responsibility, right? You want people, if you have to hold people accountable, is that the person you really want in your company? Most people you want in your company, you want them to be responsible enough to do that without having to hold them accountable. I understand what you were meaning. Mm-hmm. I also like to add the word responsibility there, because that's really what we want. We want people who are going to be responsible to do the right thing, and the exception is me holding you accountable. Because if I have to hold you accountable every day, what kind of culture am I setting as a leader? And so those are some of the things that we need to to talk about. How do we need the short-term wins. I'm not unrealistic to think we don't need those. It would be Pollyanna of me to say that. But how do we not do that? How do we get that without damaging or in spite of our long-term success?
Well, I think too, Mike, something to add is, I don't care how much experience you have, right? Things are going to come up that you've never seen before. And so you need that network. You need to phone a friend. Both of you guys, I've asked both of you guys your opinion of situations in the past, and I, if you don't have, if you're running a brokerage or you're management of brokerage right now, and you don't have a network of people that you can go to, and just bounce ideas off of them, ask their opinion. I feel bad for you, right? Like that needs to be your 2026 New Year's resolution is how do you get a network of folks that you can bounce ideas off, you can get their opinion, and I'm not saying you take their advice, but
Right.
it's another data point, right? We talked about you don't always have all the information, and so man, it's been so valuable in my career is to be able to reach out to friends that are in the trenches as well, ask them the question, and then that's just another piece of data as you're getting your decision.
Yeah, I don't want to make this a commercial for the association, but that's where it happened for me, right? I'll never forget that, that at the first conference I went to, I didn't know anybody at that time. Again, I'll date myself. At that time, there was probably 300-400 people at the conference, if that at that time.
Did you ride your horse there?
Yeah, I did. I came in like in a wagon, but but over the years there were all sorts of people that were mentors to me that I could call up, that I could sit down with, and they wouldn't give away their secret sauce, right? I mean, look, you two chat all the time. You're not giving away your secret sauce. You are technically competitors, but yet you both are having similar challenges, and each one of you is going to figure out a way to rising tide helps all boats, right? How are we going to do that? So you definitely see that. I would agree with that. So as we're kind of coming around the corner to the end, as you're thinking about leadership and how to demonstrate that through decisions, and I like to say, look, your reputation in today travels fast, right? Whether it's good or bad, it travels fast, and it's so fluid that you've really got to be spending some time to slow down and really look at it, which is hard, right? It's easy for us to talk about here, but it really is, and both of you know this as well as anybody. How do David? You talked a little bit about setting ego down, but how do you guys, each one of you, find time to say, and I'm sure ebbs and flows based on what's A, going on in your personal life, and B, what's going on in your business life, like all of us. But take time to really slow down and think through some of these topics that we're discussing. Is there any particular thoughts that either one of you had or ideas on that?
It's hard, right? Like, I mean, David and I had this conversation, I think like 2 years ago, but he described himself as an operator, and it's like, I get that. Like, I understand that because I just want to be moving and going and doing. I was actually talking to one of my controller today, and she was talking about working to live or living to work. And I was like, I just live to exceed. Like, I just want to go like all the time. And so slowing down for me is hard. It is difficult. I don't like going on vacations very much. Vacations I do go on, and it's beating myself up. So I go on snowmobile trips. I think David's really similar in this, where he goes and climbs mountains. But I think
hopefully we're going to climb them on together. So
yeah,
I will let you guys
I don't
do
want to be able to keep up with him. I'm a little concerned about that, but I guess I got to buy a rucksack now because you saw on LinkedIn he's got this. I'm like, oh man, now I got to get a weighted vest.
I'll meet you guys at the base camp because.
Okay.
But I think to that point, like, it's that push. Like, I like pushing myself. I like seeing what I'm capable of. I want to know that when I'm, however old and going into the nursing home or whatever, is that I gave it everything I had, like, my whole life. And I think that's the example I want to set for my kids more than anything. It's the example that I want to set for the people who work with me. But also, it's just the thing that keeps me moving, that keeps me going. I know that, I always get yelled at, whether it's by my wife or anybody else in my life, is I'm always moving the goalpost, because if I got there, it means I can do more. And so I'm not done yet. But to that point there is that time where you need to slow down. So whether, it's reading books, podcasts, having conversations, I think to David's point, like the group of friends that, I've been able to cultivate in our industry over the last, 5, 6, 7 years, it's just, that's been the thing that's helped me the most is, hey, I'm not alone in this. Like this industry can eat you up sometimes, but I'm not alone in it. There's other people that are experiencing this, and they've also come through it, alive and better for it on the other side. And so having that, relational experience, I think is huge. It's the thing that, sets the TIA apart from any other organization that I've been a part of.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, no, that's all, great stuff. And honestly, I think that's what, like, if you're looking at expanding your network, I think, going to conference, this Freight Leadership Lab course, like that's my number one goal, is for folks to get out of this is I want you to not only get good information, but I want you to have a network. And that's something that, right, it's hard to market that. It's hard to explain that unless you've lived it. I'm fortunate enough to have lived it, I think, as we all have here. And so, we want to attract good people for this course, where these good people can continue to make each other good long after, graduation of this. To answer your question, though, the thing that I think is missing, I'm trying to think of the best way to frame this up, is you can be a good person, you can run a good company, you can have a great culture, and you can still make hard decisions. They're not, mutually exclusive. In fact, you have to, right, in order to have all those things, you have to make hard decisions. And you can not like to make hard decisions, right? Like, but but you have to do it. And that's the one thing I see missing in a lot of organizations is crucial conversations, and the ability to make hard decisions. You have to continually do it, whether it's, for the good of your company, whether it's with your people, and not saying you're being mean, not saying you're doing anything like that, right? You can make hard decisions while being ethical and kindness and all the good things, all the good adjectives. But you still, at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to make hard decisions, and that's what I think is lacking in a lot of cases. And I hope this course helps some folks with that, and identifying that and giving them the skill set and the tools to be able to do that.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, right? It's sometimes having those hard decisions, having that crucial conversation is being kind to someone, right? Because sometimes if you've got someone who isn't performing and you're not doing it, letting them know in a professional manner, and then trying to figure out a way to either find ways to train them, help them improve their performance, or find a spot within the organization that that works for both of you. Or unfortunately, if the right thing is that they're no longer working there, you're doing them an injustice by not having that crucial conversation and avoiding it, and you're quite frankly not helping yourself as a leader, and your people they see that, they understand that. So we've got a few moments left here. There's not any comments at this point in time, so any final words before we depart for the day?
Yeah, I think on the side of what you guys were just talking about, right? The difficult conversations, difficult decisions, whatever, it might be. The thing that I always come back to is, what I was taught my whole life growing up. It's like there's a responsibility that I have, and it's not just to myself and my family, but it's to the 30 families and mortgages that are sitting out there moving freight right now. And if I'm not willing to make the difficult decisions, then how can I expect them to work alongside me to get to that end goal that we talk about, to get to that whatever it might be? And so that's how I've always framed it in my head when I have to walk into those hard things. Is this isn't me being angry or manipulative or whatever it might be. It is making a decision that's best for the whole, which is the whole of the 30 people that are sitting and doing their job and doing their best every day. And I think that makes making those decisions maybe still not easy, but it makes it knowledgeable that it's worth it, that it's the thing that's going to move you forward and it's going to get you closer to that, desired state that you're looking to be in.
Good deal. Well, thank you, both of you. Thanks everybody the two people that are probably listening to the three of us at this point in time. And hope that you guys have a great day, and look forward to seeing everybody at the Capital Ideas Conference this April.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.